You know that moment when your boss walks up to your desk and starts a sentence with, "Hey, do you have a minute?" And before they've even finished the question, before you've checked your calendar, before you've thought about what's already on your plate, you've already said yes. Not out loud yet, but somewhere inside you it's done. Decided. And then you're nodding. You're smiling. You're saying, "Of course," and walking back to your desk with one more thing you don't have time for. Wondering, again, why you can't just say no. That wasn't weakness. That was wiring. And there's a difference. Here's what nobody tells you about people who can't say no to their boss. They call you a pushover. You're actually someone whose threat detection system is working exactly the way it was built to work. It just wasn't built for fluorescent lighting and performance reviews. They call you spineless. You're actually someone carrying the weight of a power imbalance that most workplaces refuse to talk about out loud. They call you too eager to please. You're actually someone who learned a long time ago that keeping the person in charge comfortable was one of the safer bets available to you. None of that is weakness. All of that is math. We're just going to walk through where the math came from. Here's the thing. There's an actual reason your body reacts when your boss makes a request. It's not dramatic, it's not in your head, it's measurable. Researchers studying hierarchical dynamics found that interactions with authority figures activate a threat response system that's neurologically distinct from how we respond to peers. Same words, same tone, different part of the brain lighting up. And look, that's not because your boss is dangerous. It's because the power gap is real. They control your paycheck, your performance review, whether your rent clears next month. And your nervous system knows it. So when they walk over and say, "Hey, do you have a minute?" your brain does a very fast calculation. What happens if I say no? And in most corporate environments, that calculation doesn't come back with a comfortable answer. There's no policy document that says you'll be punished for declining. There doesn't have to be. You've watched enough performance reviews, seen enough reorganizations, been in enough rooms where someone's name quietly disappeared from the org chart. So you say yes. Not because you're weak, because you're paying attention to something real. But that's only where it starts. Underneath that fast calculation, there's a second layer, and this one is older. Somewhere, long before you had this job, maybe long before you had any job, you learned something about what happens when you disappoint the person in charge. Nobody sat you down and explained it. That's not how this stuff gets taught. You just noticed. You noticed that when you went along with things, the air in the room stayed warm. And when you didn't, something shifted. Maybe it was a door that got a little louder when it closed. Maybe it was a quiet that lasted a few seconds too long. And you filed that away. Without words for it. You just learned that yes kept things smooth, and smooth felt safe. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it a fawn response, a survival pattern that shows up when direct confrontation feels risky and appeasement feels safer. It lives in the same family as fight and flight, but it doesn't look like fear. It looks like being helpful, being agreeable, being great to work with. And I know that's a lot to sit with, especially if you're hearing yourself in it, that you've spent years being praised for something that started as a way to stay safe. That's heavy, and it's worth naming because most people carry that realization completely alone. Now here's what makes this hard to fix. You're not dealing with one thing. You're dealing with two at the same time. The adult structural fear, your job, your paycheck, your reference, and the older pattern. The one that learned disappointing authority was unsafe before it knew what authority even was. Both of them fire at once, every time. And together, they're very difficult to override with willpower.
That's why just be more assertive doesn't work. You know it doesn't work because you've tried. You've rehearsed the email in your head. You've told yourself, this time I'll push back.
And then Tuesday happens, and your boss pings you at 10:47 p.m. Quick favor, can you take a look at this before tomorrow? And you're already typing, sure, no problem, before you've even opened the attachment. Have you ever watched yourself say yes and felt in the exact same second that you didn't want to? That split-second awareness, where part of you already knows, that's not weakness. That's the part of you that already sees it. It just doesn't have the conditions yet to do anything about it. You're not broken. You're doing math. Very old math, running on very current stakes. But let's be honest about something. The workplace self-help industry has built an entire economy around this problem. And the whole economy is pointing in the wrong direction. Get more confident. Set better boundaries. Take this 6-week course. Buy this book. And there's a reason this framing never goes away. It keeps the problem located in you, in your skills, in your growth areas. What it can't say, what it structurally isn't allowed to say, is that a workplace where employees genuinely fear the consequences of saying no is not a communication problem. It's a power problem. Researchers studying workplace dynamics found that employees with less job security show significantly higher rates of compliance with manager requests, regardless of personality type, regardless of confidence level, regardless of how many books they've read. It's not about who you are. It's about the leverage in the room. And in most corporate jobs, the leverage is almost entirely on one side. You can't say no because the risk is real, not because you lack confidence. Here's what they don't tell you. Every yes you've said when you meant no, every time you stayed late, took on more, smiled through it, absorbed it quietly, that wasn't nothing. I know that might sound like cold comfort when you're the one carrying it, when you're the one who stayed an hour after everyone else left. Again, when you're sitting in your car in the parking garage before driving home, just needing a minute before you walk through your own front door. That quiet cost is real, and it deserves to be named. But every one of those yeses was also you protecting something. Your job, your stability, the version of yourself that keeps it all running. That kind of management, quiet, constant, invisible, takes an enormous amount of energy. Energy that never shows up in a performance review. Energy nobody thanks you for. You don't have to become someone who says no to everything. But you deserve to work somewhere where saying no doesn't feel like stepping off a ledge. And you deserve to stop carrying the weight of a structural problem as if it were a character flaw. So the next time you hear yourself say yes before you've thought about it, the next time your body answers before your mind does, remember what you started this video wondering. Why do I keep doing this? Now you know. It was never weakness. It was always what the room was asking you to survive. Now tell me, are you team I say yes and silently resent it for days? Or team I tried saying no once and it didn't go well? Drop it in the comments. And if this video made something click that you've been trying to explain to yourself for a while, hit subscribe. We're here every week breaking down the psychology of work that nobody talks about. Because understanding why you are the way you are, that's not just interesting, that's powerful.